What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Dropping Dimes, the show where we talk about all things basketball. I'm your host, Rodrigo, but you can call me Rod. And as usual, I am joined by the man who is known in the courts as Trio, but I call him Leo. Leo, how you doing, man?
Good. Happy New Year to everybody that's following us and listening to us right now. New Year, same me. Let's talk hoops.
I mean, the working title of this episode is New Year's Same Drama, and we'll get into it. But before we get into that part, joining us always is the King of Kentucky, the mayor of Wade County in Florida, and the person who's going to have a lot to talk about on this episode. Blake, how you doing, man?
Fellas, I'm doing great. Happy New Year as well, too.
Happy New Year.
So great. Just a lot of hoops going on as well, too. I'm personally freezing here in Kentucky. It's a bitter cold day, but it's always hot when we're talking hoops.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, and I mean today, guys, it's a spicy one, right? We're gonna talk about the Miami Heat saga slash telenovela slash whatever you want to call it. We're also gonna talk about the first fan returns of the All-Star game because I know in our circles we've been talking about this and it's getting juicy. And last but not least, we're gonna talk about the Thunder because man, if there's a team that is clicking right now, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if there's time, then we can add in some of the very recent Bradley Beal slash Nurkic trade scenarios and speculations and conspiracies and whatnot. But let's get started because I'm very, very excited. Not only because it's a team that I'm somewhat close to, but it is Blake's team and it is the Miami Heat and everything that is going on. Now, before we jump into it, allow me please to offer a bit of a timeline of how we got to this point. All right. And if I missed anything, my apologies, but we can revise it. So last year on May 6th to be precise, Pat Riley on a conference told Jimmy Butler that he should keep his mouth shut. He said, if you're not one on the court playing, you should keep your mouth shut. All right. So that's sort of, started the speculations, and this is in response to Jimmy Butler missing a bunch of time and not being able to help the team. Anyways, fast forward to June 26th of last year when Jimmy Butler and the Heat don't agree on an extension. All right. I don't think this created a lot of drama, but definitely a key component of the story. Now, September 30th of 2024, media day for the current season. Jimmy Butler says he wants to focus on the season ahead. No more emo Jimmy, no more, funny business around media day. It is, you're getting serious, Jimmy, now. It's getting serious in Miami. Now, December 10th, just less than a month ago, the one and only Shams Charania, he goes out and reports that the Heat are open to listening to offers for Butler and that Jimmy Butler wants to be traded and that there's a list of teams where Jimmy's opening to be traded to and whatnot. And then a few days later, and this did create drama, by the way. I can't remember. I think it was Jimmy Butler's agent that said, like, you know what you're talking about. And the Heat on December 26th, on Boxing Day, they released a statement from Pat Riley saying, we don't usually comment on this kind of things, but no, screw you, Shams. You're wrong. You're wrong. We're never going to trade Jimmy. He's our guy. Well, what do you know? On December 31st, Butler says he's uncertain if he wants to return to Miami anymore. He said something around, responding to a question, say like, that's a good question if I want to return or not. And now, January 1st, on New Year's Day, the Heat accused Butler of not playing his hardest in the return to the Pelicans. On then the following day, January 2nd, Jimmy Butler requests a trade. That's when he says, that he lost his joy for basketball. He wants to get it back. He gets asked by the media, do you think that you can get it back in Miami? He says, probably not. Very sad stuff, if you look basketball in general. And then January 3rd, Jimmy Butler sadly gets suspended for 7 games for conduct detrimental to the team. And that same day, it is reported that the Heat is actively now looking to move Jimmy Butler. Oh, that's a lot of me talking. I'm sorry, but I had to give a bit of a summary of how we got here. Now we have our local resident Miami Heat fan in Blake, and Leo, I do want to hear from you, but obviously I
Yeah,
have
this
to
is
pass it
all
on to
Blake.
Blake. Blake, what's going on? Please help us figure this out. I mean, have we seen the last game of Jimmy Butler in a Miami Heat jersey? And if that's the case, where is he going to end up?
Guys, this is a hard one. We're coming off the holidays here, Christmas, New Year, time of giving, time of joy. And I feel like this news with my beloved Miami Heat just really you put a damper on things, for the holiday season. I feel like I was watching The Grinch, when I kind of seeing this series kind of play out. But just in all actuality, this it's hard to see, as a fan too. I mean, first things first. I mean, what Jimmy Butler has done for the Miami Heat, cannot be, kind of talked about enough. I mean, he's in his 6 seasons this season, including obviously with the Miami Heat. I mean, they've been to the playoffs each season that he's been there, 3 conference finals appearances, 2 NBA finals appearances as well, too. So, I mean, since he's been in Miami, the identity, we always talk about the Heat culture. The identity of this team really has revolved around Jimmy Butler. He's brought that swagger to the Miami Heat. He's really kind of embodied the way that they play and go through. And obviously, again, he's been their perimeter kind of premier player. So that makes sense on that too. But it's been hard to see this, and again, going back to, you mentioned Rod, just kind of the timeline there too. And really a lot of it even boils down to, financial aspects. Jimmy Butler really wanted to get that contract extension in the offseason. The Heat, in terms of looking at it, would be about a 2-year deal, $112 million. I mean, that's $56 million a year to someone who's, albeit still an amazing player in the NBA, but 35 years old within that as well, too. And we've seen the history of Pat Riley, one of the all-time greats, especially at what he does. And history shows, he's probably not willing to kind of fork out that kind of money, especially when it comes to, someone that's a little bit further up there in age, like Jimmy Butler as well, too. And so that really created some ripples from that, too. And we saw, I mean, Pat Riley, this is a guy who, didn't come to an extension with Dwayne Wade, who ended up leaving Miami within that as well, too. So will this be the last time we see, Jimmy Butler in a Heat jersey? In my personal opinion, I think yes. I think we will. It's hard for me to say as well too, but I think it's kind of gotten to that point. He's 7-game suspension right now. Even when that's over, I mean, it might be hard to reintegrate him. I mean, I'm sure the players will have to play with it, but like just chemistry wise, how's Jimmy going to feel after that? I find that hard to see. So now again, financially, that makes a whole another challenge. We can talk about trades and what that looks like, because it's really challenging to make something like that work with his contract. And the Heat don't want to take on a lot of salary like a Bradley Beal, who's kind of been brought up a little bit in some of these trade salaries too. So, but I do think this will be probably the last time we see Jimmy Butler in a Heat jersey.
Man, what a sad situation, honestly, because this guy was sort of the standard for Heat culture, right? I can't remember what last year's Heat culture jersey said on the court, but about being gritty and we're the hardest working team in the NBA and whatever. And I was like, no, please don't let the door hit you on your way out, kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of tough to see, honestly, an end of an era for our beloved Jimmy Butler, who's always a character and always will be in the spotlight for one thing or another. But you're right, like the lack of effort coming into the season, and how the two sides have soured over the comments made at the end of the season last year. I didn't really foresee it going well, especially for somebody who can be emotional like Jimmy Butler, who has this alpha dog mentality everywhere that he has gone. He probably feels that he doesn't really fit in with the team anymore. And so with that said, I don't think it's repairable, especially when you've come out in public to say something like that. Say that you will never find joy playing with the Miami Heat organization anymore. So yeah, a bit sad to see, but curious to see where he will end up, because I'm sure he will make any team a contender going into it. And it is a little bit tricky with the money thing, but Jimmy Butler is not Bradley Beal. So I do think there are teams out there that want his services. No offense to Bradley Beal.
Oh, all the offense. He's gonna end up a Laker, sadly. I feel. Anyways, we're not talking about Bradley Beal right now. But guys, I'm curious. Before we start, the speculations, because they're also really good about Jimmy's next destination. I just want to end up sort of dissecting this a little bit. This would be Jimmy's what, at least from recent memory, the third team that he leaves in bad terms. He didn't really leave the Bulls in bad terms, but the Timberwolves, he certainly did. The Sixers, certainly, and now the Miami Heat. However, you have players like Joel Embiid saying that he loves him, Jimmy, as a teammate. Other people have come out and said that Jimmy is a great guy, and he's a great sort of, I don't want to say captain, but a great teammate to have around. So, and Pat Riley, who said it? I think it was Shaq recently on Inside the NBA. He said like, you don't talk back at Pat Riley, right? And Blake, you mentioned this. He's known for sticking to his guns, and he's very old school. He's like, no, I'm in charge here. So obviously it's a mix of both. But do you guys think that this is gonna sort of have a bad impact on Jimmy's legacy? Having left so many teams in bad terms, and now being in this position where he's not really now in control of his own destiny. It's now up to the Heat to send to whatever package or best offer they get from another team, right?
Yeah. I don't think necessarily that's going to impact his legacy. And I think one of the things about Jimmy Butler we can all agree on is he's probably one of the premier competitors, especially right now in the NBA. But even when you're kind of looking at in history, just the competitive nature he has. I mean, playoff Jimmy, talking about that too. And yeah, he does kind of have, unfortunately, a bit of a track record. You look at, obviously, the Bulls, you wanted to kind of stay there, but, contract wise, they didn't want to make it work out. Minnesota's a whole different story, obviously kind of contract based, but a little bit different. And, I had a hot minute in Philly before coming to Miami. But I think one thing you see, kind of maybe compared to him to some other cases. I mean, we saw Paul George kind of did something similar, right? When he was kind of wanted out of the Clippers, to kind of get his kind of out of that too. And I think this day and age, whether it's good or bad, you see in the NBA, I think this is becoming a bit more prominent as players maybe have a stronger voice and they're trying to go to certain teams to stack up or whatever it may be too. So I don't think, given some of that, maybe it leans this way one way. But Jimmy Butler, I will say, I don't necessarily maybe agree with his words and things he's saying, but he's been a little bit professional, I guess, in the sense that he's not downplaying his teammates. He's not downplaying necessarily the organization, or since this news has come out, other than his post-game kind of comments about, when they asked him, is it going to be in Miami? He said, probably not. But like, he's not like doing much else outside of that, if that makes sense. So I don't necessarily agree with his comments, but at least he's not taken, an unprofessional way in some of this. And so I think his legacy will still be there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And I think I would agree with that. But also on top of that, I feel like Jimmy is a more kind of polarizing figure in NBA history. He's always had this kind of personality that is more gargantuan than other superstars, or at least, kind of a man that beats to his own drums. Kind of reminds me of a Dennis Rodman. So in my eyes, somebody like that, well, like not in the style of play, but just
but that's what concerns me. Like, if you're not comparing him to the style of play, do you want to be compared to a Dennis Rodman?
Well, not to like, the way that Dennis Rodman would be partying and being unprofessional. I think in personality, he kind of commands that kind of aura around him, but way more professional and how he approaches the game. And so I would compare the two of them in just strictly how they are maybe viewed as like a character in this product of the NBA. And so for that reason, I think like you can't really do wrong. It just adds to the legend every time you hear something more crazy about how his career is spanning out, right? The legends of him taking the second unit and beating the first string starters in practice because, they thought they were soft, like things like that, right? So this little saga, to me, I agree with what Blake's saying. He has been professional in the way that he hasn't really trashed the organization or his teammates. And he just kind of is voicing what he feels and wants out of his basketball playing career. So, yeah, salute to Jimmy.
And last thing that I want to add before we jump into trade scenarios, or where do you guys think he's going to land? I know, Blake, you mentioned the contract, and just as a reminder, Jimmy signed a 3-year contract back in 2023 for $146+ million. Right now, age 35, his contract is at 48 million. Next year, the last year of his contract, would be at $52+ million, and then he would become an unrestricted free agent at 37. The age part, I don't, obviously players are now having longer careers. I don't know if that's necessarily a concern. There's load management, and if you bring someone like Jimmy, if you manage his load and you bring him for playoffs where he's known to be or to have had legendary performances, I wouldn't worry too much about the age tag. But the contract, yeah, it's there. So all right, let's move on to where is Jimmy going to go now, because I think the Heat, it is in their best interest to get the best return on investment now. So what do you guys have on where he might end up?
I have a scenario in my head that makes no sense for either side.
I mean, some trades actually go down like that, right?
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
But in the perfect world where both sides benefit, and I get to see Jimmy play the brand of basketball that he brings to the table, I think he would be an amazing addition to the Milwaukee Bucks. I think.
Okay.
I don't know how it would work money-wise or player-wise or any kind of options, but just with the style of play that he brings and who Giannis is, and as far as a older roster trying to win now, it kind of fits timeline-wise perfectly. And the things that Jimmy has done to Giannis in the past in the playoffs, bouncing him year after year, he's probably somebody that you want on your team rather than playing against in the playoffs.
100%, yeah.
Yep.
With Dame kind of being on the same timeline, also hunting for that first championship. It's a very small window for all three of these players in this organization trying to get a championship. But I think if there was any, timeline where the three of them could be playing together, it would be right now, because I think it's the perfect storm. So, again,
I don't have to fire up the trade machine to see if it's possible.
Yeah. So that's in my head where I could see Jimmy Butler playing. They need somebody like that. So yeah.
Blake, what do you think that this I don't know, I don't want to call him a legend, but he did take the Miami Heat to 2 finals. So this future former Miami Heat player will go.
Absolutely. I will say I agree with you. I think the Bucks would be a great fit for him. I would personally hate that being a Heat fan, because man, going up against a Bucks team with Giannis and Dame and Jimmy, so that'd be tough. 2 teams that really kind of pop out for me, and we can even preface by saying, realistically, again, given, as you mentioned, Rod, just the contract that Jimmy has, going to be extremely hard for many teams to really make that work. I mean, you're pretty much looking at a 3-4 team, kind of trade that would need to happen, where other teams are involved to make this work out, from a financial standpoint, unless you are the Phoenix Suns, with a Bradley Beal style contract. But again, I think the Heat sources have said really are not looking into something like that, because they don't want to take on that kind of money as well too. So 2 teams I think could be really interesting, for Jimmy Butler. One, the Memphis Grizzlies. And when you look at a team like a predominantly younger team who's obviously bright future, one of the premier players in the NBA, and Ja Morant, I mean, you're kind of looking, obviously, great rookie, Zach Edey and Wells as well too. Like the kind of team in that mold, like I feel like you get a Jimmy Butler there too. One, I feel like they would want him, but 2, I feel like that can really put them in the next stage in the Western Conference. They're that team that, I mean, they made runs when you look in the past, but I feel like that can really get them, to be, a Western Conference Finals team as well, without, kind of getting rid of someone like, obviously they're not going to get Ja Morant by any means, but again, without getting rid of too many key pieces. Now, again, it wouldn't be a straight up, Grizzlies Heat trade. I mean, something that, I've even seen in reports, if something like that happened, is getting the Pelicans involved. I mean, you got Brandon Ingram with some of the trade things there too. I mean, would Zion be involved in this? I mean, as a Heat fan, I personally would love to get a Zion back. I mean, a younger player. I I mean, if we could trade Jimmy and somehow in a trade package get Zion,
Wow.
I'd be all for it. I mean,
Okay.
Wow. I mean, I guess
you think about it from a front, like when you're kind of looking at, from the down low kind of post for the Miami Heat. I mean, we got Bam, but we kind of lack, that power forward or kind of big for there too to kind of complement him. And having someone like Zion again, if he's healthy, I think would be a great fit.
Big if.
But also you're guaranteed to not get Jimmy to play anymore, right? So
I mean, that's already a guarantee, and
yeah,
that's how I could convince myself, in that sort of like, okay, Jimmy's gone, right?
Yeah,
there's no going back. So what am I gonna get in return?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think if you're Miami, like they obviously would like either a kind of obviously great players in return, but I think for them, they want to make sure they're not jeopardizing their kind of financial capability in the future, right? I mean, Miami, thankfully, is a great destination for free agents, and I feel like they're looking to make sure they're not too strapped when it comes to those opportunities as well. So it'd be hard to get someone like a Zion. Again, I don't think it'd be straight up, Pelicans, kind of Heat from there too. The one team I do want to mention besides Memphis that I feel like could be a good fit, Houston Rockets. I mean, a young team,
okay,
second in the West right now. I mean, you think about getting a Jimmy Butler on that kind of team as well, too. Especially, I mean, they're by far. I mean, I think we all said they're going to make the playoffs, right? And you get a team like that with not as much playoff experience, and get someone like playoff Jimmy on that team. I mean, Ime Udoka, I'm sure would love to have Jimmy on his team. All the battles and the Celtics did with the Heat. So, and they have the moves to make it, but they won't want to get rid of key young pieces. But I mean, I think it'd be a good fit for him.
Yeah. And I think with the veteran presence already there, they really bowled well together, right? Like another hard worker in a Freddie VanVleet, but also a antagonizer like a Dylan Brooks. I think like Jimmy is in it to play that villain role once again. And in the West where he could really test himself, would be a really great destination. So I would love to see that as well, personally.
I have a quick question because for you, Blake, in that New Orleans scenario, because they also got Brandon Ingram, and it feels like they're actively also looking or trying to get rid of him or trade him. Would you take Brandon Ingram if not oversight, but if Zion is not made available in that trade?
Yes, I would take back Brandon Ingram. I think he could
Okay.
fit well. I would prefer Zion, but I would take Brandon Ingram given the circumstance, because I think Pat Riley, I think in negotiations, especially when it comes to contract wise, because again, Brandon Ingram is going to be a free agent right at the end of the season. When you're kind of looking at re-signing him potentially, and I think trying to make it work where they're not too strapped in the future. But yeah, I would take back a Brandon Ingram.
Mm-hmm. And just so I wanted to share the Vegas odds because I always feel like the odd makers know something that we don't. Mm-hmm. Right now, the Grizzlies are leading the way at landing Jimmy Butler. Obviously, this is pure speculation. Unless someone got a phone call, a la Shams, where you got informants, which I wouldn't be surprised. But the Grizzlies are leading the way at plus 300. Then the Suns right behind them. Which if Jimmy Butler goes to the Suns, I don't know what that team's gonna do. Honestly, it's not that I would be scared. Yes, that's a lot of firepower, but at the same time, it's like, what are you doing? Then the Warriors, then the Rockets, and I don't know why the Heat is still there. I suppose that means that they wouldn't trade him.
Yeah.
But also, if you're Pat Riley, if you're the Miami Heat, you would basically be paying Jimmy Butler to sit out the rest of the season.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't know if that's any better either.
Yeah, I don't know. It would really depend on how Pat Riley's feeling on any given day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know Pat Riley. I would love to know him, personally. I feel like Blake has had coffee with him, or at least had a Cubano with him. But it feels like he wants him out, right? Like they're not seeing eye to eye, and Pat Riley's he's part of the old guard kind of thing. Like, he's not going to let Jimmy boss him around. To be fair, and like Blake mentioned, Jimmy's been fairly professional, or at least, he's not creating further drama. He's just answering the questions that he's getting asked. It is sort of the Heat coming out with this unwanted statements. There's like, no, we're not trading Jimmy. Stop it. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way, get out. And you know what? And you're suspended. You want to quit? Well, no, because I'll fire you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, man, I wish this didn't kind of end the way it could potentially be ending. Because again, I mean, so much that Jimmy's done for the Heat, and I know he loves the organization. I'm sure just based on his comments as well too. But like, yeah, after these 7 games are up, like again, I can't imagine the Heat just sitting, like you mentioned, Rod, on that money and not playing him as well too. I don't think Jimmy, being the competitor he is, he wants to be on the court, right? And so, I mean, there's some of the, I mean, you saw Bam Adebayo's maybe comments out here, like when they were being asked about Jimmy's post game, like, I mean, they don't want to be asked these questions, right? It's awkward. It's awkward for everybody involved within that as well too. And you think about reintegrating from that too, and I think they all have a great relationship. Like I think getting Jimmy back, I think they'll click, right? But it's just how's Coach Spo and his relationship. Like what does that look like kind of going forward too? Because Jamie's pretty much said he's not re-signed. He's not going to opt in to, even though he's, what is it, like 54 million or something like that for his opt-in next year. He's already said he's not going to opt into that. He's going to test the market. So really either playing the rest of the games, trade him, or I can imagine him sitting on that money.
Yeah. Just final question for you guys in this saga that we're in, but whose fault was it? Is it Pat Riley or is it Jimmy Butler? Like that kickstarted this whole thing. I know the comments were made by Pat, but you kind of react to it however you want to with it. And I'm sure Pat said it with the intentions of lighting a fire in his superstar. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I think from looking at it, I think in the end, maybe, and again, we don't know the behind the scenes, unlike maybe some other people that might have some insights, but I wonder what that communication was like, especially in the offseason around that contract after some of those comments and what that part was like. Because for me, it seems like that communication, there's like there's a gap there, or at least some friction as well too. Like, to be honest, you can't blame Jimmy for trying to get paid and get that, re-up on his contract. I mean, look what he's done for the Heat. I mean, you can't blame him for looking to do that. But also, you can't blame Pat Riley for trying to do its best by the organization. Like, that's a lot of money, right? Like, you brought up earlier, Rod, like, because I was listening to Shaq's comments when he was talking about that conversation he, kind of had with Pat Riley. And I think he even said, like, he had a similar one where he went to Pat and was asking for $25 million. And Pat Riley said, hey, I can give it to you, but what about like 20 million? But we have this extra space to bring in some of these other guys to make it work. Like, I wonder if some of that was happening and, what it was like too. If I had to lean one way, maybe I would say it's a little bit maybe more on Jimmy. Just, I mean, his comments, this all started like he could have waited till the end of the season, just kind of played it out the way it was. Right. But yeah, it's me personally.
Yeah, I don't want to. I hate going against Blake, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, because he is the expert on that. But I put this one on Pat. Who he's an owner that's a little too involved. He's a little Mark Cuban, or Mark Cuban is a little like Pat Riley, I should say, where as the owner president, you're a little too involved, and you have people there that can make and help you make those decisions, right? So those comments in the offseason, if you're Jimmy Butler, is like, why are you coming after me? Like, it's not like Jimmy's, this up and coming player, right? Like, he's already proven himself. He's an NBA All-Star. Definitely, I would not consider him, a Hall of Famer, but pretty known, lovable figure in the NBA, 100%, and he's got a pretty proven track record. So why are you calling him out? Right? Do you want a more mature voice in the locker room? Then go find that, right? You used to have Kyle Lowry that sort of served that role. But right now, I don't think there's anyone in the Heat, in the roster that is, that Udonis has them that was like, all right, let me lay the land for you guys, right? And tell you how it really is. And if he's looking for Jimmy to do it, probably not. He's the leader on the court. He's the best player that they have. But he's not going to be the leader that maybe Pat Riley was looking for him to be. So I put it on Pat Riley and his comments to starting to sour those conversations, right? And then you move forward into negotiations and, maybe he went in, with an earnest conversation and all that. But if you're Jimmy, it's like, all right, you already said this about me. You don't want to give me money. What am I supposed to do here, right?
Yeah. It's tough. You hate to see it, especially when you got somebody like that, just such an impact on the team over his 6 seasons and what he's done as well too. Because again, the Heat culture, I mean, he embodifies that, and so I wish it was different. It's tough to see.
Well, he's definitely not an all-star this year, right?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, let's make that pivot, guys.
Yeah,
let's make that pivot and obviously we're gonna keep everyone. We'll keep you, dear listener, up to date on what happens to Jimmy. But let's talk about the All-Star Game first fan returns because. I mean, this happens where, you start voting for your favorite stars. And again, actually, let me take a step back. For those of you that might not know or might not be 100% sure, the starting five for the East and the West the fans get to vote them in. And 50% of the weight of that vote is voted in by the fans. The other 50% is divided between current players and the media. All right. So as a fan, we do have a pretty heavy weight on who gets to start on the All-Star Game, right? Now, usually during this process, the NBA teases out like, hey, this is how the voting is going. There are 2 fan returns before they tell us who are the starters. But at least in recent memory, and ever since Sasa Pachulia back in the day, this year's first fan return was puzzling. Now, it's been a while since we did StreamYard. I'm going to try to pull this up, but if I can't, forgive me. As you can see, I've been playing with the layout and not very successfully. Let's see if I can pull this off. Present. Share screen.
I agree. Puzzling is definitely what I was looking at when I saw these All-Star votes coming back at first.
I expect everything.
You know what? I'm not even going to try. I'll figure it out next time. But you'll just have to deal with my melodious voice and accent. All right. Let's start with the Eastern Conference. So the front court, actually, that one is not too puzzling. At the number 1 spot, it is Giannis Antetokounmpo, followed by Jason Tatum, Karl Anthony Towns, Paolo Banchero, and Jaylen Brown. That's the top 5. But guess who's the number 6? Jimmy Butler, getting a bunch of votes over Franz Wagner, over Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Evan Mobley. That's your top 10. So, I mean, Jimmy's a pretty famous player. Not super surprised there. I think his stock will go down. But okay, this is where I want to talk about. Okay, the Eastern Conference guards. Okay, LaMelo Ball at the number 1 spot, over Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, Kate Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero at number 9, and Derek White. 2 things here. A, LaMelo Ball at number 1. Someone please explain to me. I know Leo tried in person yesterday, and I still don't get it. And number 2, Tyler Hero at number 9. Blake, I know the Miami Heat is in a bit of a disarray. Heat Nation is in disarray, but guys,
he's heating it up.
But come on, how is he number 9? How is he not higher?
Yeah.
Well, he? I mean, he's definitely better than Jordan Poole. But then I look up the list of those players, and it's tough to put him ahead of against any of those guys, really.
Sure. Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson, even Kate Cunningham. Like, okay. But okay, can someone please explain to me LaMelo Ball? Oh. Great. I'm not saying he's terrible. He's flashy. That little cracked neck move that he does, where I want to see a chiropractor on his behalf. It gets me every time. I love it. But
I think in the simplest terms possible for myself to explain this is that he just screams all-star, right? He embodies.
He embodies it.
He embodies.
Please explain it to me, please.
The flashy play, the excitingness, and in a time when we're talking about viewership going down, who are people really watching these days? The rivalry stuff. There isn't really. It's really squeaky clean right now. The NBA is in a lot of ways, and so when you add a guy like LaMelo Ball, who is one of one, and that's how he kind of brands himself, and he's got the tattoos and like the way he plays. He's kind of like a cultural icon for the kids coming up right now. The same way I think an Allen Iverson would have been back in the day, for a lot of people, right? The
Wait.
kind of clothing he's wearing. No. I'm not talking about his legacy and how he plays on the court and his effect on the game and such. You know, I'm purely talking about setting a culture and a tone for kind of.
But what
generation
culture,
I can see that though. I mean, I agree with Leo there. I mean, now I'm with you, Rod, in the sense that I don't think he should be. I don't think he should be number one. Again, we're looking at the fan voting, right? And I think what Leo brought up, I mean, those are some great points. I mean, LaMelo, I mean, he's really ingrained in terms of like, especially with this generation. When you're looking at social media and some of those things as well too. I mean, he does a lot, for that. I mean, his style of play on the court is, maybe unorthodox, but it's attractive in ways where it's kind of fun to watch. I mean, he's averaging 30 a game as well too. But do I think he should be number one? No. But again, when you're looking at from a fan perspective, I think some of those points Leo brought up, I can see how he kind of leads that too. Again, I think mine, when we were kind of doing our picks, like I had Donovan Mitchell and Dame Donovan Mitchell and Trae Young, who I think should be way higher than number 5. I mean, this dude leads the NBA in assists and leads in assists. I mean, averaging 23 a game. I mean, the Hawks right at 500 as well too. I mean, LaMelo Ball. I mean, the Hornets, one of the worst teams in the NBA. I mean, looking at some of those, but again, I can see maybe why he's number 1. But real quick, where's Tyrese Halliburton, by the way? Why is he not even top 10?
Oh, no. He's I don't know if I love Hallie. I'm not saying his season's great, but like not even cracking top 10. I'm just surprised. True. I'm just surprised he's not in the top 10. I mean, especially when we're looking at fans. I mean, Jordan Poole is number 8, so yeah. I don't know what Russian bots are hacking the NBA these days.
I mean, where's the Pacers fans? I mean, you got to vote for these people. So.
Hey, Tay, I think Jaylen Brown's better than Tyrese Halliburton.
Shout out Tay. Can't wait until you join us, brother. I just the guards for the Eastern Conference, that list, I keep scratching my head. The next fan update is on the 9th. Let's quickly go through the West before we move on and before I get a stroke.
Before we do though, shout out to Trae Young. He does not get enough love for who he is. As he's playing winning basketball. He is playing good basketball now. And people think about him as, kind of where LaMelo is right now, just empty stats. And so he does not get enough love.
I think Trae does deserve a reserve spot, not starting by any means. But in my mind, he should be in the All-Star, at least get one All-Star nod in his career. And this should be the year. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's quickly go over the Western Conference frontcourt, which makes a lot more sense in my mind. Obviously, the frontcourt is Nikola Jokic leading the pack, followed by KD, LeBron, AD, Wemby, Şengün, Jalen Williams, Andrew Wiggins, Sabonis, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Any surprises there?
Yeah, Kevin Durant and LeBron James. Get those old guys out of the way. It's time for Wemby to come through. And Jalen Williams at 7, come on now. Kid's playing out of his mind, and they're the number 1 seed. Like, no, please. Nikola Jokic.
You're not making any sense to me today, Leo. I'm sorry.
Hey, I'll let Blake take over.
I mean, again, I understand from a fan perspective, but again, I'm right on with Leo. I mean,
thank you.
For me,
Jokic. 2025? What are we doing this year, guys?
I mean, especially looking at the seasons that some of these players. I mean, again, Jokic, unquestionable number 1, should be. I mean, dude's balling out. And I'm not discrediting some of the seasons Durant and obviously LeBron are having too, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as well, Rod. But like, I would have AD over LeBron. I mean, from a season, the impact from the right now too. I mean, I think AD is
100%. You're right. Yeah, I would have AD as a starter for sure.
And then my other, I would actually have above KD and LeBron's actually Wemby. I mean, leads the league in blocks, 25 points per game. I mean, yeah, I would put him in there.
Wemby has to pay his dues.
Put him in there.
Wemby still needs to ask permission to play Call of Duty or chess, after the game. He needs to ask an adult to play chess before the game. So, no, he's not ready to be a starter, guys. I'm sorry.
Hey, he went up with the best of the best this past weekend.
He did.
And
He did.
He
He
held
did,
his own. You're one
but
and one. So I
he
don't know
should-
what you're talking
he
about.
should be voted in as a reserve, not ready to be a starter. He's
He-
not there yet.
He is
Not yet.
blockbuster, my friend. He is ready to take over the league. He already has.
He's
taken
ready.
over
Yeah.
the best
He's
this
prime.
far,
I agree.
Not seeing it, as
But
clearly, but he's
That's
the one.
2025, 26 that we're talking about.
I'll
This
put him in
year,
next. He's rolling.
Jokic,
When is now, my
AD,
friend.
and LeBron in that order.
AD and LeBron. Okay.
Yeah.
Not discredit, but I mean, what he's doing at his age, he's balling out too. So I mean, I'm not upset with those by any means, but I would definitely maybe have those other two I mentioned above.
Well, and then a guy like Şengün, who is what, number 6 in this list, who in my mind definitely deserves it over a LeBron or a KD.
No. Okay. You're just trying to get a reaction out of me now.
If we're gonna go on the record,
Over Şengün, over LeBron or KD? No.
Yeah.
Does he deserve an All-Star or not? 100%. Over those two? No. The Rockets are playing great. Great team.
where
Fun
are
to
the
watch.
Lakers and the Suns sitting currently?
This is not about standings, though, right? Otherwise, we should have
otherwise
this
Melo,
all-starting
yeah.
five for OKC.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And
apparently
LaMelo
it didn't-
should be out there rapping with his brother.
I would say I'd put Sabonis over Şengün, to be honest. I put him a little bit above that as well too. Şengün's having a great season, but I feel like Sabonis is. I know he's had some injuries, but I think he's a bit lower than what he should be there.
And
the Kings are just never going to get the recognition they should
Yeah.
be. Sabonis and Fox should have made it last year, and if they didn't make it last year, it's really hard to see them make it this year. So,
and this is also the fans sort of saying the Kings, they're becoming the Kangs again. What are you doing? You fired the coach of the year. They're having a horrible start to their season. It doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. Anyways, let's jump to the guards, which sort of also makes sense. I think this, from the 4 categories that we have in front of us, this one is the one that makes arguably the most sense. At number 1, we have the Prime Minister of Buckets. And after today's news, potentially the next Prime Minister of our country of Canada, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Then at number 2, Luka Doncic. Number 3, Steph. Number 4, that was a surprise to me, Kyrie. Number 5, Anthony Edwards. Number 6, Harden. 7, Ja Morant. 8, De'Aaron Fox. 9, Devin Booker. And 10, another surprise, Norman Powell. But this one, to me, it makes more sense. This would also be very, very tough. I don't know who I would vote out to get someone in. Top 3, again, is Shai, SGA, Luka, and Steph. Now, Luka, big question mark, right? He's still injured. My gut tells me that he'll get the All-Star nod and the starter nod, but he won't play the game, and there will be an injury replacement for him.
Yeah, the only thing surprising here is how just a year ago, when the Timberwolves were rolling, everybody was saying Edwards is the next face of the league, and how far he's dropped in popularity, to number 5 on the Western side. That's still really good. He's in a top 5 position here, but I just thought fans would have rallied behind him a little bit more. In my opinion, he's kind of regressed a little bit. He's maybe still adapting to the plays of Julius Randle and all the kind of drama that's been going on within that organization. But with that said, he isn't looking like the explosive Ant that we know, right? He's shooting a lot more threes. So it's interesting to see him at 5th, especially with Kyrie over that, even though I'm a diehard Kyrie fan.
Yeah.
And sadly, Kyrie, Kyrie very sadly also is going to be out. Just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But we'll see, right? So, we're getting into injury time, and that might play a role for, again, they can get selected as a starter if that's the case, or even as a reserve. But if they are injured for the game, they get an injury replacement. Sorry, Blake, go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, good point, too. I hate to see the news out to Kyrie today as well. And I was just going to mention, when you look at, the guards in the West, just looking at that as well, too. Obviously great guards, but so popular too, just in terms of mainstream, just what they do. So you think about, I was thinking about this when you bring it up, Ant, Leo, just super popular, but man, just Steph and his popularity globally, Luca, SGA as well too. Like, man, that's just a tough kind of thing. Obviously, skill wise as well too between the players, but I'm okay with it. I mean, to me, it makes sense those players as well. I agree, Rod. I think Luca doesn't look like he's probably going to end up playing. Obviously, probably will get started out. I think he was on a scooter. Was it the other night, like too?
Yeah.
And what this is, hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. The only one that I think is definitely lower than should is De'Aaron Fox, who we've already kind of talked about. Like me personally, I'd probably put him. I'd probably put him at number 4. Like if you're just kind of looking at on the rank, me like other than the top 3, I think De'Aaron Fox has played better than John Morant, James Harden, and Kyrie. I mean, he's 5th in the NBA in points per game. I mean, he is. I think so. I'm not saying
what happened on December 31st, 2024. Like, who are you guys? Bring back the Leo and Blake that I love.
I'm just saying, I mean, again, 5th in the NBA in points per game. And yeah, the Kings have had a rough start. I think they've won the last few, thankfully, though, under Doug Christie. But like without De'Aaron Fox, I mean, this team would be in some gutters right now. Like he's been playing phenomenal, and he deserves definitely a reserve spot. But like again, Ant, I agree with Leo. I think he's regressed a bit as well too this season. You're looking at obviously with Harden, Morant soon, like. I think Fox, again, I'm not saying I'm going to take him over some of the others when you're looking at like future franchise player, but season he's having, I think he's top 4.
I can kind of agree with the points you're making. I can see him being the Trae Young of the West, not getting the recognition that he deserves for really playing really, really good basketball. But, I look down this list and James Harden, I love seeing at number 6. I feel like just not too long ago, people were boycotting him out of the All-Star game, collectively as fans and the players themselves. So to see him get a kind of rejuvenation of his brand this late into his career is nice to see. But yeah, John Morant, the Grizzlies are what, 2nd or 3rd right now? They are
2nd.
But yeah, they've been playing really good basketball, and nobody's really talking about them.
Sorry, third. The Rockets are 2nd. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And John Morant is a big part of that, right? The Grizzlies were one of the worst teams last year without him, and now just like that, when he's back on the court, one of the best. So, I wouldn't say that De'Aaron Fox has played better than John Morant. Maybe statistically he has, but as a leader, as a whole on the court, tough to put him over Ja from myself. But I hear you, and I agree.
I'm not listening to either one of you when it comes to All-Star voting. I can't wait for January 9th. I am honestly very curious. I hadn't voted in the past 2. I think I only do the first time to like show that I voted. But this year I've been taking advantage of the Fridays when your votes count triple. I've been voting because I don't want to see LaMelo number 1. I'm sorry. He can go in as a reserve, but I cannot see him as a starting guard for the East. So I'm very curious to see what happens, and I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Especially with how much the NBA All-Star game is kind of a laughing joke right now. It would just be cherry on top with LaMelo.
I think if LaMelo gets a starting nod, I think Rod needs to sing LiAngelo Ball's song kind of live here on the show.
I'm down. I'm down.
That should happen.
I'm down.
Yeah, give me just one of those whoas. Just one of those.
I haven't even listened to the song. I know that everyone is listening to it. I need to check it out.
Actually, I think LiAngelo Ball should make the NBA All-Star team this year. I think he is the most successful Ball brother out of the 3.
If LaMelo makes the All-Star game as a starter, LiAngelo should be the halftime show.
Oh,
it only makes sense.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
and then for the last verse, LaVar just storms in, and then just flips the bird at everyone. It's like, I'm back. Actually, I never left. Never lost.
Yeah. What a great success story. I would really, really love to see Cade Cunningham make an All-Star team this year.
Me too.
I think
he's had a great season.
Yeah.
And
I also would love to see Franz Wagner, but he's missed time, so I don't know.
Yeah.
He has. I think like on this list of like all the kind of first timers, definitely Cade and Jay Will. Like those are the 2 that I'm really hoping somehow make their way onto the All-Star game this year, because they're very deserving.
I would like to see Kyrie back, but I don't know. I think he'll bow out even, out of injury.
Yeah,
Anyways,
love Kyrie.
January 9th, we'll post it on Instagram. The second fan returns. All right, guys, last topic of the day, and it is the Thunder. Feel the thunder, guys. OKC is just storming the NBA. They've won the last 15 games, and yesterday, January 5th, they beat the Celtics, and their last 3 games, they've come back from at least a 10-point deficit entering the fourth quarter. Tomorrow or Wednesday, they are facing the best team in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's a must-watch game. But the Thunder is rolling, and I'm wondering, obviously this is a really good team. They're sort of, not just running it back, but they added Alex Caruso, who's injured right now. Chet Holmgren's still out. But I wonder, is the Thunder the clear contender to beat the Celtics or the Cavs in the East? What do you guys think?
I think so, yeah. This team is no joke. It's really refreshing to see a team that's kind of homegrown, and that is striking when the iron's hot, getting the key pieces that they felt they needed to really make that next push. And then just Shea being the perfect leader, cool, calm, and collected all the time. He lets his kind of running mates do their thing, and for them to also know that, like, when the going gets tough, that, like, he will be responsible for closing out games, which he has fantastically. And then getting a guy like Hartenstein, who has been bouncing around the league ever since he's been around. I remember him playing for my beloved Denver Nuggets, thinking he was a really great center that, he just didn't pan out at. So for him to kind of get the recognition as well, they're 17-1 since he's been back. So there is no stopping this team. These guys are legit.
Yeah, they're the real deal. I mean, this is a team. I mean, they're dominant right now. I mean, obviously, let alone the 15-game winning streak, but they're doing this all at 30-5 and majority without Chet, right? I mean, you think about a player like him and just, being out the way he has. I mean, I think we all, once he went down, we're kind of wondering, like, we knew the Thunder would still be good, but what would be their floor, right? Without him. And, like, right now, it doesn't seem like there's much of a floor. I mean, they're rolling. Beat the Boston Celtics, obviously, the other night as well, too. And even, when they beat the T-Wolves recently, like, I think Ant-Man's comments at the end, he was kind of talking about SGA. He was kind of like, he can't be stopped. Like, he does what he wants. Like, it's just impossible to guard him. Like, because he's just amazing on the court right now, too. And so I think me and Leo had both the Thunder as our preseason NBA champs and SGA as our MVP as well, too. And I mean, it's looking good from there, too. And I will say, I was kind of looking at this, shout out to ESPN on some of their statistics, but in case you guys are curious, in NBA history of teams that have had a 15-game win streak or more, the most points per game by any player on that team in that span is SGA at 33 a game, just above Kareem, Steph Curry, Michael Jordan. And fun fact, those 3 other guys I just mentioned all won MVP that year. So if anything's to be said, if history repeats itself, looking pretty good for SGA.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anyone at this point in time, as of January 6th, that, is even close to what SGA is doing. Right, at least Jokic, for the MVP level.
Jokic should be the only person. Yeah,
Jokic.
Yeah, but look at where the Denver Nuggets are, right? And
look at his team.
Agreed. But, this is a very young team, right? I
mean,
you said it's homegrown, even though there's been trades and whatnot. But the thing that the Thunder is doing right now is beyond impressive. Honestly, this is a very young team, fairly inexperienced, but they've had they're sort of trying to get their runs in the playoffs. I want to get even more excited about them, but I'm scared that their lack of experience might again catch up to them in the playoffs. That's my only fear right now. I think they get punked again.
I think the period where Chet went down before Hartenstein was coming back was a period where I thought, like, okay, this might be it. this might be the Thunder's time to kind of slow down a little bit and maybe lose a couple games before they get like a true big. But they adapted and they played together as a team. And I think that little glimpse of seeing how they operate as a unit together, I think that answered all the questions for me. I don't think they're going to go into the playoffs, even as inexperienced as they are. I just don't think that they're going to fumble because they played together for each other. And, you know,
but you know what?
Other year. So
the NBA Cup final, that's where, you know, I got that little seed of doubt. That's where it got planted because I'm like, this is you know, at that point of the season, early on in the season still, but it's a high stakes game, right? You do want to win the cup, even if it's just for the staff or the players that don't get as much money, but you want to end up winning that. And they got spanked by the Bucks, right? And this is a Milwaukee Bucks team that I would not necessarily consider them, you know, a super contender. They're still figuring things out, and they've improved, and now they're sort of going back to like their way of mediocrity in a way. So that's why we're like, okay, yes, you don't have Chet, who's a big part in the plan, but I didn't see that resilience. I thought that, you know, the Bucks came in and with Dame, with Giannis, and we're like, all right, we've been here before, you know, let's just teach these kids how it's done, right? And they didn't have an answer for them.
Yeah, but that was one game. You know, I've seen many playoff series where a team gets blown out by 40 points, and then the next game or two they come back with a vengeance and win out the series. So, you know, time will tell. But these guys are, I think we can all agree, for real. You know,
I hope so. Yeah, yep. I mean, I want to root for the Thunder so bad, right? Because otherwise, it's the Celtics, right? That's the only other option. And I know the Cavs and all that, but no, it truly is just the Celtics.
No. Yeah. I think the Cavs are for real too, man. Like we can
Nah. I think they're for real. I still got the Celtics over them though.
Yeah. You know, Donovan Mitchell is a real superstar in this league that does.
Oh, he is, yeah.
Get the recognition that I think he deserves. And Evan Mobley is playing out of his mind right now. So I don't know. That's another team where I see like the cohesion thing and them playing for each other and just having a really good vibe all together amongst themselves as a unit. Like they're going to be tough to beat.
The one last thing I just want to say about the Thunder, like that I love, one, defense. I mean, they're the best defense in the NBA right now. I mean, holding opponents to 103 points per game, but like they really seem like they have the best cohesiveness of any team in the NBA, especially just like chemistry wise. I mean, they all play well together. Like they all seem to enjoy playing with each other as well too, in terms of just on the court. And when you kind of look in as well, like, you know, it reminds me of like when you look at college basketball and NBA basketball, like, you know, sometimes you see like chemistry at a different level when it comes to college basketball than the NBA. Part of it's just the nature of, you know, being a pro athlete and what that's like as well too in the business of it. And like this team kind of feels like that chemistry you'd see in like a college team as well too. I mean, post-game interviews are all kind of like, you know, shoulder to shoulder, kind of, you know, enjoying those moments as well too. Like it seems like they're having a great time, and I love to see that. And it kind of reminds me of like the younger Warriors, you know, in terms of like their earlier years. Like this is that kind of what they're building and what they're like.
It also feels like a redemption of, you know, the original Thunder of, you know, KD, Harden, and Westbrook a little bit, right? You know, still young, but, you know, they were already really good players at that point.
Yeah, I feel old just thinking about all this.
It's only going to get worse after this, man.
Oh, yeah.
Five.
All right. Well, like I said, the Thunder's next game is on Wednesday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, which sucks because I'll have to rush from the office to enjoy that game. But it's going to be a really good one, you know, and it's going to give us a lot to talk about, right? You know, the best two teams in the NBA facing each other, and we'll see who emerges victorious. They're playing it in Cleveland. So, yeah. Any predictions for that game, fellas?
I think the Thunder have it slightly.
I actually think that the Cavs are going to pull that out in Cleveland. I think they'll get it done, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I'm with Blake. As much as I love the Thunder, but, you know, they've been coming back on their last 3 games. And I think the Cavs at home, they're strong enough that they might put an end to the streak. But I do see the Thunder going on another long streak again.
They always just figure it out by the fourth quarter, right? Like against the Celtics, they were not winning that game in my eyes. They were down 10, maybe even more later on, and they found a way to claw back and win by double digits almost.
Yeah,
right?
the second quarter, it would actually look like Boston had it. Like OKC kind of put their arms down a little bit, but then they had that third quarter rally, and it's like, oh my god, okay, we're in it.
Yeah, and the fact that they can just turn it around within one quarter that's where I think they're a really dangerous team. So yeah. Okay, well, 2 against 1. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. All right, folks. Well, anything else before we go into our usual outro here?
Let's see. Let's looking forward to these All-Star votes on Friday. See where we turn up at.
Yeah, hopefully LaMelo
second fan return. We'll see if I have to sing LiAngelo's song. I can't wait. I hope we all have notifications on for Shams or anyone for the Jimmy Butler saga, and we'll see if the Thunder keeps it going. The Thunder.
I think
I'll keep saying that.
That's better than the AC/DC version. I love it, Rod.
Thank you.
I just, the last thing I'll say is, are we actually going to see Rod do any of these bets that he's lost?
Hey, I'm done. Someone said they were going to take me to Taco Bell. Do you think I'm going to drive myself to Taco Bell?
With Taco Bell, so I don't know.
Do you think I can be seen in public driving myself to Taco Bell? No, I got a reputation to take care of, man.
We need a live reaction whenever you try Taco Bell as well. We need to see that.
I will do it, but I will not drive myself. I'm not bringing my physical body by myself. To a Taco Bell.
I'll be recording Rod at our nearest Taco Bell very soon, singing Leandro's new hit single. So
I'll drive to your place, Leo, and then we can go. But I am not driving or taking the bus or anything myself to any of those establishments. But I do owe you that, and I will pay it. I will pay eventually. All right, folks. Well, thank you to the one or a couple of viewers. We're back doing this live, and we're going to do it now every week. Every time that we record, we're going to go live on YouTube, on Facebook, because I think my uncles are still on Facebook. But hey, that's another avenue to watch. We're going to keep the actual pod going on Spotify, and every Wednesday you'll still get the audio because you're used to that, and we're never going to stop that. But this is just another way to connect with all of you. I look forward to gathering more of an audience and, for folks to jump in with questions. If they want us to talk about something specific, I very much look forward to that. And I know that we'll get there. So just bear with us and looking forward to doing more of these lives on YouTube and Facebook. Until then, make sure that you follow us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Spotify, on Instagram at dropping.dimes. That's where we post on, all the time when we're going to go live, our reels, our questions, anything. Just do it through Instagram. If you want to get a hold of us, maybe you want to sponsor us. I don't know. We usually drop brands here and there. Send us an email, contact@dropping-dimes.com. Anything else, fellas?
Yeah, listeners, just come on back and hear me and Blake talk some sense into Rod for the next hour.
I missed 2024. All right. Until next time, this is the Dropping Dimes crew signing off. Happy New Year. Peace, love, basketball. Adios.
Peace.